Right here in my hands I have two fine skateboards. The one on my right could be called a blank deck and the one on my left could be called the graphic board. What's the difference between these two boards? Is there different? Well, let's find out. So at first glance, as you can see, these boards look very different. This one has more of a wood grain graphic, while the graphic deck has, well, a graphic on it. Graphics usually consist of different things that the company puts on there to either promote the company or just have something cool that you definitely want to skate. Let's start with graphic boards. Graphic boards usually have the company's name on them to promote themselves and other cool graphics. Graphic boards include pro decks and team decks that the company makes to help promote their riders. When you walk into a skate shop, generally you'll see a whole wall of these. Many of them have really cool graphics and they're really cool to look at. Chances are if you've had a skateboard before, it's had a graphic. Each company has a specific shape they use to make their boards and specific different resins and wood. Although some companies use the same wood or the same shapes, most skateboard brands will vary just a little bit. So while some would say all skateboard brands are the same, I beg to differ. These boards usually cost around 50 bucks. Now we have the blank deck. Well, the first thing you'll see is the wood grain graphic on top. Normally blank decks just have the color of wood, however, these blank decks have a different colored bottom ply, so although it's still wood grain, it has a color on it. Different to graphic boards, blank decks do not have a graphic on top of them, so although it's still lacquered, it's just this. Before graphic boards are made, they look like blank decks and they just happen to have the last step of putting on the graphic on top. That's why when you board slide, you can see bits of the wood grain underneath. With a blank deck, there really isn't a graphic to scrape off, so it just kind of gets some wax marks on it. Some blank decks may be made by different companies such as Real or Girl, companies that you know, however they just don't have the name of it on it. However, in other cases, these decks are made by different producers that just make blank decks sort of on the side, and it's not their sole thing they do is making skateboard decks. These decks usually cost 25 or 30 bucks. So the price is a steal, so why wouldn't you just get this if you're not really too big of a fan of graphics? Well, there is one thing about it. These graphic boards are made specifically for a company, and because of that, that holds the company's standards within it. These blank decks don't necessarily have a company that's tied to it, therefore the standards might not be the same as a normal pro skateboard deck. Because of that, you take a risk not knowing if this skateboard will be equal quality to a normal skateboard you'd buy in a shop. I have had blank decks in the past that don't hold up quite as well as normal skateboard decks, and although they still worked as a skateboard, it just wasn't as poppy and they didn't last as long. However, this blank deck is actually made by the same producer that Girl has, so the wood, the resin, and the shape is very similar to them, making it almost like a Girl skateboard. Also, when you buy a blank deck, you're not supporting the companies that you like. For instance, when I bought this Real deck, Real got a portion of the money. If this was a pro model, then that pro would get a portion of the money, and that supports the industry, and that's what helps companies grow. So, which of these decks is right for you? Well, what I would say is if you're a kid, you're skating a lot, and you're burning through decks maybe every 3 weeks, then get a few blank boards, see what it's like. Hopefully you can find a high quality blank at your local shop. If they don't have blanks there, chances are they have a shop deck, which is similar to a blank deck, however they put a shop graphic over it, and those decks are almost always cheaper. Those decks can range around $30, and I'd say they're pretty good. You gotta support your local shop in two ways, because not only did you buy it for them, but now you're repping them at the skate park and Instagram footy. It's awesome. If you're not burning through decks a ton and you have the extra cash, I'd say go for the graphic deck. It's a little more assurance and quality, and they look really sick. It's really up to you. Most people get graphic decks because they like supporting companies, honestly. Supporting companies is a big part of skateboarding, that's why most people get these. However, I get these because I'm just a kid who's burning through decks and I need to skate as much as I can. So I hope you found this helpful, and if you have any questions at all between blank decks and graphic decks, please put them in the comments below so I can answer them. Also, there's a poll in the corner for which deck you skate, and if you could answer that, that'd be awesome. I'm Nikolas Gibson. I make content like this every week normally, getting back in the groove right now. So if you like my channel, check it out, and if you really like it, subscribe. Thanks.